If you have more than one advisor in your office, you want to be using roles. So let's jump right into the benefit. So the big benefit is that you're going to have faster and more accurate workflow task assignment. And I know I'm a visual person, so let's just go ahead and show you exactly what I mean when I say that. So if I click on my name in the top right hand corner, I'm going to go down to manage your account. So I'm going to go up to my name and I'm going to go to manage your account. And underneath the manage template section, I'm going to go ahead and click on workflow templates. And right now you see a number of workflow templates within my system. Your screen when you're in your system might not look like this because you haven't built out any workflows yet, but definitely check out our help desk. We have some amazing workflow sessions available along with some templates that you can refer to. And one of those templates that you can refer to is this onboarding process. So this is an onboarding process that we have. So that way, if prospect A talks to prospect B, they can say that they have the same exact onboarding experience. But right now, you'll notice that the assign to is either assigned to one individual person like Bill or Tucker, or it's assigned to an entire team like the client services team. But what roles is going to help you do is going to help you, instead of assigning these to-do items to a team or a user, it's going to let you assign it to a general role. So that way, depending on what client it is, it'll take over that assignment. So let's just think of a scenario here. Let's just think you have two advisors. You have advisor 1 and you have advisor 2 in your office. Advisor 1 and advisor 2, they both share the same office team, and they even share the same exact process when it comes to prospecting, onboarding, reviewing, etc., etc. So what this office needs to do is have the ability to create one single process for onboarding or one single process for prospecting, and then be able to place like a placeholder for each advisor. So that way, depending on the client, it'll correspond to that correct advisor. So like I said, I'm a visual person, so looking at this workflow right now on my screen, let's assume that that scenario I just talked about where advisor 1 and advisor 2 have the same process, the assignments that go out to the advisor right now are, say, Tucker. So wherever you see Tucker on this workflow, it should just say advisor, because advisor 1 might take this or advisor 2 might take this. And it might be Tucker, it might be Bill, it might be Tabitha. We don't know who advisor 1 or 2 is. So that is why we invented roles. Roles kind of, in my opinion, serves as a placeholder. So that way I can edit this individual to-do item, and instead of saying this is assigned to Tucker, I could say that this is assigned to the advisor role, and depending on the client, it'll go ahead and choose which teammate is applicable. So I know that was a lot of information at once. So all of this that I'm talking about is super ultra dependent on clean data. So let's go ahead and show you what piece of clean data I'm talking about, and we'll jump right back into this workflow. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on this recently viewed icon, and I'm going to open up a client in a new tab. So I still want this workflow page to be open, but I want to open Bruce Wayne in a new tab. So to do that, I'm going to right click on Bruce Wayne and click Open Link in New Tab. And now I'm going to go ahead and click out of this. I'm going to have this workflow page open, But if I click on contact, I'm going to have Bruce Wayne's page open as well. So that way I can navigate throughout other parts of the CRM. So feel free to do this if you see fit. But on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and select on More. And toward the bottom here, you're going to have an option that says Permissions/Roles. Now, right now, you'll notice that there are permissions assigned, and permissions are different than roles. Permissions restrict the viewing access to this record. So right now, only Tucker, Mario, and Tabitha can view this page, but the roles still need to be assigned. So what I'm highlighting right now is the super important piece of clean data that I'm talking about that needs to be implemented to go ahead and experience that in the moment advisor application. So if I go ahead and click Add Roles, I can go ahead and choose who is Bruce Wayne's advisor, who is Bruce Wayne's associate advisor, who is his CSA. And CSA is standing for customer service agent, but I do not want you to think that these terms mean anything. You cannot change these terms, unfortunately, but what you can do instead is tell your team that, okay, team, when you see advisor, I want you to think this. Or when you see associate advisor, I want you to think marketing. So you can go ahead and use some internal terminology to go ahead and replace these terms, but you can't unfortunately go into the system and, replace this with words that make sense to your firm. So right now I'm going to go ahead and say that the advisor for Bruce Wayne will go ahead and say is Samantha, and the associate advisor will say is Paul, and then the CSA will go ahead and say is Rick. All right, and then if I go ahead and add those roles, now I went ahead and said that for this specific client, this is his service team. So if I do go ahead and take a workflow and that workflow has an advisor role, then Samantha will go ahead and be assigned that workflow task. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to go ahead and click on the recently viewed icon again, and I'm going to open up Henry Jones in a new record or in a new tab. So right now I have Batman open, Bruce Wayne in one tab, and then in another tab I have Henry Jones, Indiana Jones in another tab open. So let's go to More on the left-hand side, and let's go back down to Permissions and Roles, and let's go ahead and assign the roles for Henry. So Henry does not have the same team as Bruce Wayne. Henry has a completely different team that he works with within the office. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect that here. So the advisor for Henry is Bill, and the associate advisor is Jack, and the CSA is Daniel. So I'll go ahead and add that role. So there we go. This is Indiana Jones's team, and this is Batman's team. So they are both clients of our firm, but they have different teams that go ahead and service each client. So I was able to do some front end work by putting in that role assignment. So that way I can go ahead and put that role assignment into my workflows. So now whenever you see Tucker, I could go ahead and change Tucker to be that advisor role, because it's not always going to be Tucker who is the advisor. Sometimes it's going to be Bill, sometimes it's going to be Jack, sometimes it's going to be Samantha. So we need to go ahead and make the workflow assigned to a general placeholder. So that way when we do take this workflow live and assign it to an individual person, it'll have the correct assignments. So I went through here pretty quickly. I'm just going into every single one that I see assigned to Tucker, and I'm changing that to a role assignment. So that way it's assigned to the advisor role and not to Tucker. And if we didn't implement this advisor or this role concept, I want you to think of what would have had to happen. If you would have had one process for onboarding, but you have 7 advisors in your office, then you would have to clone 7 different workflows and make each workflow assigned to each person. So now what we're doing instead is creating one workflow, but putting a placeholder as the role for each to-do item, so that way it'll reflect appropriately to the client. So I went ahead and did a lot of work there. I took all of the to-do items that were assigned to Tucker, and I assigned them to the general role of advisor. So next thing I want to show you is how we can go ahead and take this one workflow and assign it to Bruce and then assign it to Henry and see how it takes those different assignments. So I still have Bruce Wayne here open in another tab. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page very quickly. And to add in a new workflow, I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign here in the top right-hand corner. And that'll let me add any new content to the system. So I'm going to choose to add in new workflow content. And since I already have a workflow built out in my system, it's called an onboarding process, I went ahead and selected that template. And then we'll go ahead and say this is Bruce Wayne's. All right, and then I'll go ahead and create this new workflow. Now what it did is it made a new workflow, and you'll notice instead of saying assign to advisor, it says assign to Samantha. Because if I go back to the roles page of Bruce Wayne, Samantha is set to the advisor role. So it took Samantha and it assigned all those individual to-do items to her. But now if I go back to Henry Jones and I refresh this page, all of those advisor roles are going to be assigned to Bill. So I'm going to do the same exact thing here. I'm going to click on the plus sign and I'm going to choose to add in a new workflow. And I'm going to choose the one that we were talking about. So I'll name this Henry Jones. And we'll go ahead and create this new workflow. And now what I want you to notice is it's not going to say advisor and it's not going to say Samantha, but now it's going to say Bill. Because if I go back to Indiana Jones's advisor roles, Bill is set to the advisor. So what I just did here is I did some front end work of putting in that advisor, the associate advisor, the CSA. So that way when I'm building out my workflow processes, I can just build out one process, but put the assignments to general placeholder roles instead of individual persons. So that way, depending on the client, it'll go ahead and assign it to the appropriate team that services that client. So that is our thinking with roles and why we have created them. I think that they can add a lot of value to your practice. And we did show you how you can assign roles on an individual level, where I went to Bruce Wayne's record or I went to Henry Jones's record, and I went to more on the left-hand side to select on permissions and roles. But I also want to point out that this can be done in bulk. So you do have the ability to search for a certain group of clients. So that way in mass, you can go ahead and place those role assignments. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on contacts on the left-hand side, and I'm going to select on the advanced search tab at the top. And now you want to go ahead and search for that criteria of data that you're looking for. So do you want to search everyone who is in a geographically distinct location because that's how your advisors are assigned? Maybe you want to search everyone who has a certain source or a certain servicing advisor field. So that way you can cast a net over everyone who's set to the servicing advisor of Samantha and set them en masse to that role. So you want to go ahead and think of the criteria you want to cast the net over. And for this example, I think that the best way to do this, if you're using the servicing advisor field, would be to go ahead and cast a net over a specific group of servicing advisors and then do the assignment that way. So I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to Bill, and we'll go ahead and run this search. And it doesn't look like we have any records that came up. So let's go ahead and go down to Tucker. All right, so here we have 142 records that have the servicing advisor set to Tucker. So if I want to take all of these clients and en masse set their team structure for advisor, CSA, and associate advisor, then I can go ahead and check off this top checkbox here. And you want to make sure that you do select all contacts, because if not, it's only gonna choose the 50 here that are on this page. So if I do make sure that all are selected, I'm going to go over here to Contact Options. And if I click on Contact Options, I'm going to go down to Bulk Actions. So I went to Contact Options, down to Bulk Actions. And underneath Bulk Actions, you have a ton of different options here. But what we're looking for is role assignment. So that way I can take this group of clients that I just cast the net over and I can en masse assign their roles. So that way I don't have to go record by record, hit edit, hit save, go to the next one. All I did is I cast the net over that group, and now I'm going to say the appropriate assignments. So I'll go ahead and say that Tucker's the advisor, Bill's the associate advisor, and Sam is the CSA. On the right-hand side, you do have these boxes that I do suggest to check off, so that way you are going to overwrite any existing ones. Because we're assuming that the net that we just casted over that group is all clean data. It's a great list of contacts. So I want to overwrite anything that might be in that list, because what is right is reflected on my page right now. So if I assign these roles, it's going to take those 142 something contacts and go ahead and assign those role assignments. So that way, if I go to More on the left-hand side and I go to Permissions and Roles, you'll go ahead and see that Tucker is the advisor, Bill is the associate, and Sam is the CSA. So that's probably your best bet of doing these role assignments. But if you do want to go ahead and start to play kind of catch up, what you can do is clients come in every year for a review. So once a client comes in for a review, you can go ahead and put the appropriate role assignment, and then within a year's time, you should be completely caught up. So it's up to you on what you want, but I think that it would add a lot of value to your firm, like I said earlier, if you do put this role structure into place. And also within the advanced search, I do want to point out that there is a type here for roles. So that way you can choose a specific field like advisor and cast a net over everyone that has Tucker set to the advisor role. Or better yet, what I think would be helpful is maybe you want to cast a net over everyone who's missing that servicing or that advisor role. Then we can go ahead and choose is empty as the operand, and it'll cast a net over everyone who's missing that advisor role. And you might want to narrow down this search more because right now you're including businesses, associations, deceased clients. So you might want to just narrow the search down a little bit further so that way, you're really getting to those people, those individual people that are missing that role assignment. Also, another tip, if you are implementing something like a style sheet, which is something that we do recommend, so that way you can tell your team, this is the way we enter contacts in the system, this is why we use this workflow. I would also suggest putting in your role pairings into that style sheet. So that way you can kind of say, Tucker, Bill, and Sam are usually a team that work together to service clients that are within the Arizona area, and Tucker, Sam, and Jeff service everyone who's in the Nevada area. So you can go ahead and put those kind of pairings into your style sheet. And also I mentioned how you cannot change the name for the roles. So what I mean by that is if I go back to this role area, you cannot change this word from advisor to something else. Or you can't change this from associate advisor to, best assistant ever. Unfortunately, those are locked in there, but what you can do as an alternate is within that style sheet, put in there, the role associate advisor actually means best assistant ever, or it actually means marketing manager, whatever you see fit. So that's another tip that I would suggest. But now that you have good data, you can go ahead and if you have good data of that roles, you can go ahead and make workflows to have role assignments and see how those assignments are different when you assign the workflows. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I know that was a lot of information, but it is definitely our most advanced, one of our latest tools that we've released to the system. So if you see that it would be valuable to your office, definitely implement it. And if you have any questions on whether or not you're doing this correctly, you can definitely give our team a call and we're more than happy to help. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 800-206-5030, and that's option 3 for support. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today and see you next time.